pay attention to your emotional triggers. Your triggers are data. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. When somebody does something to upset you, instead of going, oh, I can't believe they did that to me, say, what inside me caused me to react to that? Like, where in my past have I experienced something like that? And if you can go to the root of it and release it, the next time that happens to you, you will be so surprised. You'll just be like, huh, okay.
Welcome to the Anniston Riekstins Show. This space is created for the woman coming home to her voice, her power, her way. For the woman remembering who she really is, beneath the noise, beneath the roles, beneath the world's expectations. I'm Anniston, transformational guide, spiritual teacher, best-selling author, and creator, here to walk beside you, to share stories, wisdom, and energy that guide you back home. Here, we lead from the inside out. We create from overflow, not hustle. We rise not by becoming someone else, but by remembering who we've always been. This isn't just a podcast. It's a homecoming. So let's dive in. Hey, welcome back to the Anniston Riekstins Show. I am so glad you're here today because I have someone on this episode that I genuinely adore. And I think by the time you're done listening, you're going to feel exactly the same way. I met Dana Herrera a couple of years ago. We actually got to spend some time together in Costa Rica. And from the moment I met her, I just thought, wow, this woman has fire. Like when she decides something, she goes. And I've had the privilege of watching her evolve and step more and more fully into who she is and what she is here to do. Dana has spent 16 years in healthcare and wellness, and she has built something really special with her brand new book, The 4 Dimensions of Wellness, which has just been released at the time of recording this podcast, which is actually a workbook because of course it is, because Dana is all about experiential healing, not just reading about it. In this conversation, ladies, we go there. Dana shares some of the most honest, raw things that happened to her over the course of a single year that would have taken most people out completely. And not only did she survive it, she came out the other side more whole, more healed, and more clear than ever before. We talk about fragmentation, coherence, conscious uncoupling, what it actually takes to bet on yourself, and the vision she has for the future of healing that honestly gave me chills. So grab your coffee, get cozy, let's dive in. Here is my conversation with the incredible Dana Herrera. Welcome back to the Anniston Riekstins Show. I am so happy that you are tuning in today. I have a very special guest, as you just heard, Dana. I am so excited that you're joining us for today's show.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me, Anniston.
Well, as I mentioned on the intro, I met Dana a couple of years ago. And one thing that I was really struck by you, Dana, is that, man, girl, you've got some fire. Like when you decide you're going to do something, you do it and you show up in the world in really, really big ways. And it's been really cool to witness your evolution the last couple of years. And I know that there's been some peaks and then there's been some valleys, and as typically happens when we're coming up to a transition. But before we get into all that juicy stuff, I would love for you just to tell the listeners a little bit more about your background and how you came to be doing the work that you're doing now.
Absolutely, yes. And I loved our time together. We got to spend some time together in Costa Rica. And I wish we had more time, but I loved our time together. And I feel the same about you. So honored to be on your show. So yes, so I've been in healthcare, wellness, longevity for the last 16 years. And I got into the industry, the traditional medicine industry, to really change it because I had saw my mom experience, advanced chemotherapy and radiation, and the doctors say, hey, good news, she's in remission, but she wasn't healed, right? She was now addicted to pain pills, sleeping pills, her skin was fused to her chest. And it's like, what happened? I thought the system that we live in and that we believe in is actually supposed to heal us, but it's harming us. And so I got into the traditional medicine path to make a difference. And unfortunately, what I saw was what most listeners probably experience is that we are a system of addressing symptoms and not root cause. And the way the model is built with insurance and everything is that doctors have to see more people to make enough money just to cover their overhead. So the human is taken out of healing. And I wanted to put the human back into healing. So after about a 10-year stint on the traditional medicine side, doing everything you could imagine, by the way, I ran anesthesia groups, hospitals, surgery centers, labs. I was in the behavioral health sector, and I got to really see all the different pieces. I decided to go into regenerative medicine. And regenerative medicine is absolutely incredible. And I am a huge believer. Helped build a company in Costa Rica just around all things regenerative medicine, stem cells, plasma exchange, really utilizing your body to do the healing for you, just giving it the tools that it needs. And I saw incredible, incredible miracles happen and people heal. But I also saw that some people didn't heal. Like two people could have the same treatments and have completely different outcomes. And so as I was professionally going down this path, I was also in parallel dealing with my own personal journey. And my own personal journey consisted of really figuring out at the age of 37 that I didn't love myself, that I was performing, that I was achieving, that I was striving, wearing this mask to try to achieve a seat at the table or love or a reward, but that I didn't truly love myself. And so in 2024, that was the year. I mean, on paper, I shouldn't have even gotten up from that year. I gave up my salary, so my financial stability was rocked. I actually got divorced that year. My house got broken into twice. I went to jail. And then at the end of that, my dad took his own life in January of
Right.
2025. And all of that had occurred over 12 months. And what was interesting was at the end of that, I was the happiest and most fulfilled and at peace that I had ever been. And I looked back and I was like, how did I just endure all of those crazy circumstances and feel the way I feel? And so that allowed me to reflect and go, you know what? It's because I did the work, Anniston. I did the work of healing every dimension of my being, my physical, my mental, my emotional, my spiritual, so that when life happened to me, I wasn't taken out by it. I was able to learn from it and understand what are the lessons. And since then, amazing things have happened. I've actually reconciled them with my ex and my husband. We're back together and we're a family now. I've went out on my own and written a book and I'm starting my own company. And I've seen from start to finish what living in fragmentation does. I've seen it in other people. And then I've lived and experienced what living in coherence looks like and how that feels and shows up in your life.
Oh my gosh, there's so many things I want to unpack from what you just said, but I think that, I'm a big believer that we're always being qualified for what it is that we're here to do. And we can't always understand, like, why did I go into this field, or why am I continually like having all of these different experiences? But I feel like until you get a little further in life and you really have that juicy hindsight of being able to look back and be like, you know what, I wouldn't have changed a thing because it was
Yep.
exactly what I needed in order to step into what I'm doing now. And so I just want everyone to hear that. For those of you that maybe are still, you're very much in a corporate job or you're not 100% sure, just know that even today, as you sit here right now and you listen to this, there's a purpose for where you are right now. And if you're still there, it means there's still something for you to learn. The second thing I
Right.
want to say, and I love that you brought up that the way that we have, I think, where human consciousness has been when we created the medical system and when we created the education system, and, we didn't have the understanding that we have now.
Right.
And as a collective now, we are understanding the mind body connection in ways that, like, the people who created the system that we're living with right now couldn't have possibly, because they didn't understand it. But yet, it's being so slow to, like, make these changes, and it's like, I feel like humanity has outgrown the medical system that is there. I also found, even, you were in the medical field, well, I was training sales teams, and one of the reasons why I wound up going into the work that I do is because I realized, just like you said, one person would take all the sales tools and create great success. The next person would take same tools, same everything. The only variable is them, and
Hmm.
they would fail. And I was like, unless we're doing mindset training and unless we're helping them expand their belief system, expand their identity of who they are, all of this is for naught.
It's not in the doing, it's in the being, right? That's why.
It's who you are being and who you believe yourself to be. And then those tools can be really, really successful. And then the final thing I'll say before we move on is, last year, everything that you were moving through, what really stuck with me was that I really believe that grief is a portal. I really do. I think grief is, they say you're a gift when you come, right? You give the gift of joy. And then when you leave, you also leave your loved ones with a gift. And I believe that gift is grief. because through the purging, it's a purification. It's an actual massive release of energy, a massive release of emotion. And oftentimes on the other side of these big ordeals where we have felt all the feelings and we have allowed ourselves to go through it, is our next level. It's a big leap into something completely new that we might not have been able to access as quickly if we hadn't have allowed ourselves to go through the grief. So I just wanted to point that out as well, because I don't think it's an accident that here you are, you've just written a book and it's about to come out and you have this whole new career. And I mean, your marriage is better. I mean, that's like a hell of a whirlwind.
Yeah, it's a miracle, honestly, is what it is. And on the grief side, I'll mention this. In the book, I talk about that. I truly believe it's a hard pill to swallow at first, but I truly believe my dad taking his own life was the greatest gift he could ever give me. And he knew that. He chose that, right? Because it was the catalyst for me. It was like, I can't not do this work. The cost of fragmentation, the cost of never coming home to yourself, the cost of never learning who the fuck you are. I'm sorry. That's not acceptable. You know what I mean? And that's what it looks like. And so for me, that was the last kind of initiation, spark and catalyst that was like, you have to do this work. You have to do this work.
So you use the word fragmentation. What does that mean to you? And how did you discover that you were fragmented?
Yeah. So fragmentation to me essentially means that different parts of us are fighting each other, right? So every single day we wake up, we have thoughts, we have feelings, we are a body, and we are a soul. And fragmentation is when those four things are conflicting, right? When what you think is different than what you say, is different than what you feel and you suppress it, and then is different than you knowing who you are. So we're expending all of this energy all day long, not on output, not on doing things and going to work out or going to our jobs, but literally fighting ourselves. And so that's where the four dimensions of wellness came in. Every single human being has, again, thoughts, emotions, a physical body, and a soul. And when we live in fight or flight and we're in a constant state of stress, our bodies cannot come into a place of coherence. They can't heal. They can't repair because they're fighting each other. That's what fragmentation is to me. And so I watched it again in both of my parents and patients, and then in myself when I looked in the mirror at 37. I was like, on paper, I have everything. I say I'm fine. I say I'm happy. I'm feeling empty. I'm feeling disconnected. What is happening? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. 100%. So in terms of the four dimensions of wellness, which is your new book that is coming out April 17th, and it's actually a workbook, which I think is perfect because I know for you, everything is about experiential healing. Even the book that you're creating is about experiential healing. So talk to me a little about when did you know you had to write this book, and what is your unique philosophy that is going into this?
Okay. So essentially, I knew I had to write this book for a long time. Like I go back and I look at my journals from years ago, and everything in the book was showing up in my thoughts and in my feelings that I was writing in this journal. So it's been slowly pouring out of me piece by piece. But then what originally happened, I guess I would say last September, when I left essentially like working for somebody else, the corporate world, and was like, I have to bring this message to the world. That's when I finally sat down and put pen to paper and really started just getting in flow and letting God speak to me and through me. And I mean, over the course of September to now, I mean, it was created, but it had been obviously a working progress leading up to that. I just knew at that point in time that I actually had to put it in a book and get it out to the world. And essentially, the philosophy is exactly that we are multidimensional beings, and our current wellness system focuses on one dimension at a time. You can go to a clinic and do stem cells. You can go to a doctor's office and get medication. You can go to a retreat and focus on your spirit. You can go to a therapist for your mind. Nowhere is somebody looking at the whole human at the same time in order to bring, again, all of those dimensions and pieces back into coherence. So I really wanted to create something that allowed you to look at those different dimensions from a different lens, right? It's not just eat healthy, sleep right, go to the gym. It's more than that. Like our physical bodies, they're not machines. They're not. They are the most divine, intelligent vessels. And they speak to us and it gives us signals every single day. But if we're not listening to those signals, all the biohacks, all the supplements, all the protocols in the world aren't going to do what you want them to do because the organizing intelligence behind the scenes is in fragmentation and is living in chaos.
Yeah. I will 100% believe this. I mean, like through and through, and I have for a long time. And it's so refreshing to me that we're having these conversations and that something like, I know for you, you're creating in a category that doesn't exist yet. You're really innovating and you're trailblazing. And so I do want to go a little bit deeper there. But before we do, I was thinking about, all the women that are listening to this. And I was thinking about your story and how you had to make some pretty hard choices and scary decisions to get where you are today. And I know sometimes from the outside looking in, someone can say, oh, well, she's really successful and she's really confident. So it's probably easy for her to let go of what was and to bet on herself. And so I'd love for you just to go a little bit deeper in talking through your process of how it was that you made that decision to leave the comfort of being an employee of a business or being, funded, if you will, by someone to going out on your own, because that's a whole other thing.
I agree. And I would love to talk on two topics if that's okay. And the first one is leaving my marriage. I want to talk about this because I don't think it's talked about enough. When I am not an advocate for divorce, hear me loud and clear. That's not what I'm saying. I am an advocate for love. And love is not obligation and love is not need. And when I chose to divorce my husband of 17 years at the time, I did it from a place of love because what I acknowledged and what I saw was that I was not the best version of me for him, for my children, for the world. And I can't give what I don't have. So I made that decision. And this is why we were able to get back together. I made that decision from a place of love. It wasn't from anger. It wasn't from resentment. It wasn't from revenge. It was from no other place than I love myself so much that I have to give myself to be the best, to be the highest and best version that I can. My kids deserve that. The world deserves that. And because I made that decision from love, we were able to rebuild our foundation and our friendship because the emotions weren't like, you know what I mean? Most people, I think, go through divorce and there's a lot of resentment and anger and sadness. And so you live from those places. And so that never gives you an opportunity to truly heal. So I want to talk about that. That was very, very difficult. I did not want to break up my family, but I knew that in order to give what I had to give to the world, I had to go find myself. And in doing so, it allowed us to come back together. That's the first piece.
Can I ask you a really quick question on that before you get to the second one? So I've heard a term before. It's like conscious uncoupling.
Uncoupling. Yes, I read that book.
I haven't read the book, but I heard the term and I was like, I love that. I actually love that. And so based on what the experience that you just went through, would you advocate for women or at least recommend for women that feel like they are so disconnected from who they are, they can't possibly connect to their true truth of what is the right decision for them within the marriage? Do you think having that space, having a separation to come back to who you are, to reroute so you can get to your clarity is good?
Yes, 100% I do. And I did do that. We did do some separation and in order to do that. And I did so much of my work during that time.
Yeah.
And some people can go through that space and separation and come back together, but it also takes two, right? So most of the time, the problem is one person may say, hey, I love myself. I want to go work on myself. But the other person now has pride and ego and they're mad and they can't process that. And I was really blessed and fortunate that Ryan was, when I did that, said, you know what? I'm going to look myself in the mirror and I'm going to go heal myself, not for you, but for me. And because he was able to do that, we were able to come back together. But that space is so important. You have to be able to hear yourself think. You have to be able to spend time just in stillness with the creator and really listen for that clarity, learning who you are and what you're meant for. So yes, I think space is huge. And maybe it's not even a long-term separation. Maybe go away for a week, see what kind of information you get, right? You can't control the other person. I will say that right now. We cannot control anybody else in this world. The only thing we can control is ourselves. So at the very least, every single day, you decide to show up differently. You decide to show up as your highest and greatest self, and you can't control what the other person does or doesn't do.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, when you find yourself in that place of becoming aware of how disconnected you feel from your life and just due to misalignment, it is I think it's virtually impossible not to include your marriage in that.
Such a huge part. It's such a huge part of our identity and who we are. And yeah,
Yeah.
yep.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that. Okay. What's your number two?
So, and then in terms of on the business side, I mean, I had worked for people. I had started my own company at one point, and then I went back to working for people. And I always just wanted to have a voice and I wanted a seat at the table because I felt like what I saw and the way I saw it was different from the way other people saw it. I lead very much from intuition. Numbers on a spreadsheet are all fine and good. Sure, they serve a purpose, but I knew early on that numbers on a spreadsheet never give you the full story and you can't make decisions from those alone.
Mm-hmm.
As I was continuing to work for these different, I mean, men, to be honest, they lead very differently than women, and trying to get my voice across and get my points across so I could help grow the organizations I was a part of, I kept hitting wall after wall after wall. And this last company that I really helped build from nothing, I wanted to be the CEO of Anniston. They let go of some different CEOs, and I was like, I want to be the CEO. And I presented to the board, and the board didn't want that. And at that point, I had to make a decision. Do I just stay where I'm at because it's comfortable, because it's familiar, and yes, I know it like the back of my hand? Or do I want to say, thanks, I appreciate you guys, I love you guys, but I have to go, I have to grow? And I took the latter because I almost couldn't not. You get to a point where you just, everything is screaming at you that you're not in the place that you're supposed to be. But so many of us want to be able to see around that corner and see, okay, I'll take the leap when I can see where it is that I'm going. We have to step out in faith, but we can't step out in faith until we feel and know in our own bodies and intuitions that that's the direction we need to go. And that's the point that I got to, you know?
It's so true. Well, number one, I wrote down, you said, I didn't have to go, I had to grow. And I was
I
like,
did.
oof, that's so good. I was like, that's truth right there because, we look at, oh, I just have to go, I have to go. It feels like I'm running away. Instead of, no, I'm moving towards growth. But
Correct.
growth doesn't happen in your comfort zone. And growth often doesn't happen. So, which means growth doesn't happen in the known. And when you are high performing or you have a high level position in an existing company that requires so much of your energy and
Mhm.
so much of your focus, and I experienced this too, that it's almost, I think, self abandonment to try to say, okay, no, I'm going to do this and then I'm going to start building something fully on the side and I'm going to have another, because the minute you start diverting and
Like a safety net.
yeah, you're trying to create a safety net and you're going to be creating your new from your existing identity. And that's also not okay, right? Because that means you're bringing all your old habits. So for me, I had to have an incubation time, like of a couple months really, where I just did a lot of shedding. I mean, I didn't choose it. It happened to me, but like it's a natural process of shedding before moving into this new chapter so you can remember or figure out like, who am I now? Like outside
Mhm.
of that job and outside of that role. And it took some time and I had to grieve it. Did you feel like you had to go through a grieving process?
100%. 100%. Yes, I cried, I grieved. Yes, there's definitely a shedding, as you would say, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's scary. It's scary. It's sad. In your mind, you thought you were going to be doing this and now you're not. And there's that, why wasn't I chosen? Like for me, like, why didn't they pick me? You know what I mean? Like, why
Yeah.
didn't they pick me? But it happened exactly the way it was supposed to. It happened for me because now I can go do this 100% on my own without a board and without people telling me what to do. Sorry. I'm at the point in my life, I don't need other people telling me how to execute my vision. I know how to execute my vision. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But yes, there was a grieving process and there was a shedding. And I took those months as well. You're 100% right. It's a roller coaster, right? Of emotions. But I don't think people can get to the place of doing that and taking that leap again until they get into a place of coherence, because then they're leaping. It's the intention, right? Everything
Right.
is about the intention. Are you leaving this because you're running away or because you're scared? Or are you leaving this from love and from growth? So you got to
Mhm.
get really clear on that intention when you're making those decisions. And to me, as long as you're making every single decision from a place of love, right? Then the answer can't be wrong. Then the
Yeah.
direction can't be wrong because your intention is pure. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
100%. 100%. If you're running, you're probably going to run into a situation that's going to give you a very similar situation so that you can resolve whatever you were running from. Same with relationships. It's the same with jobs. And so I think the greatest thing you can do for yourself, even if you know, I mean, if you know in your heart this isn't your long term, you know that this isn't for your forever, you're feeling the pull, you're feeling that there's something new, like tie a bow on it, man. Tie a bow on it and
For
make
sure.
sure, like my goal when I left my last position was I wanna leave with so much love in my heart, and I wanna leave with, like, gratitude, and I wanna leave with relationships not only intact, but strengthened, and
Mhm.
that I know that on both parties, like, even though, yes, it's sad, we both feel really good about what that exchange was, and that's exactly what happened, but that was my intention going into my uncoupling, if you will, and so I love that you brought that up. So you've talked about coherence a couple of times, and I know that that's a backbone of what you teach and that it's really, really important. So I'd love for you to explain a little bit more about coherence for those that this maybe is unfamiliar to them, and then how you specifically approach it for yourself or how you recommend for your clients that they can start teaching themselves the skill of getting into coherence every day.
Absolutely. So what's interesting is that I think, again, we live in a wellness world where it's about doing. It's almost like the masculine and feminine energy of healing, right? Masculine is do, 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 like more, 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 more. And we need to look at the feminine side. The feminine side is about allowing and being and receiving and connecting.
Yeah.
And so when I think of coherence, I think of frequency first. And I know Albert Einstein says the future of medicine will be in frequencies.
Yep.
But I think he stopped short because frequency is only so powerful as the organizing intelligence behind it, right? So think of
Mhm.
a orchestra. You have all of these various instruments and they all sound beautiful, but if they all just start randomly playing, it's just noise and it hurts your head, right? When the organizing intelligence, which is the conductor, essentially starts telling them what notes to play, then you create music. And our bodies and our various dimensions are the same thing. That's why I said you want what you think, what you say, what you feel, what you do, and who you know yourself to all be in alignment. Okay,
Mhm.
how do we do that? And so it's a bit of a paradigm shift because it's not necessarily about doing more, but there is a framework to it, right? It's more about intentional small adjustments on a daily basis. So the first thing I tell people is find stillness throughout the day. And your husband taught me this. The first 20
Mhm.
minutes of your day is the
Mhm.
most important because your brain is in a position where you can actually affect it instead of picking up this phone and letting the world affect you. Ultimately, that's
Yeah.
what's right. We
Yeah.
wake up immediately, the world is now affecting us. So find stillness, just quiet, maybe a little bit of light music, but just get quiet and allow your brain and your connection to source and to who you are to start telling you what your day is going to be before you go out into your day. So that's one.
Mhm.
The second one I would say is pay attention to your emotional triggers. Your triggers are data. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. When somebody does something to upset you, instead of going, oh, I can't believe they did that to me, say, what inside me caused me to react to that? Like, where in my past have I experienced something like that? And if you can go to the root of it and release it, the next time that happens to you, you will be so surprised. You'll just be like, huh, okay. So, releasing emotional triggers, regulating your nervous system is huge. So, going out in the morning, grounding, breathing, journaling, all of those things that can help regulate your nervous system on a daily basis. Stop
Mhm.
lying to yourself is another one. So, we can't heal something that we're lying to ourselves about. Like, what do I actually
Right.
feel in this moment? What do I actually want? What am I telling myself that I think is true, but I know it deep down is not, right? So not lying to
Mhm.
ourselves. And then connecting to something greater, right? God, source, it's all the same, to be honest. It's all this divine frequency that created all that exists. But when you connect to something greater than you, your brain actually, your chemistry in your brain changes. And you now have an anchor and you understand that what is happening to you is not who you are. It's not your identity. It's for a bigger purpose and a reason. So those are the 5 things I typically tell people places to start.
I love that. Yeah, for
Yep.
me, it's interesting. It took some time for me to really bring safety to my nervous system after so many years of living in hypervigilance and living in, I don't want to drop a ball, I don't want to drop a ball. And when you've got a lot of responsibility on your plate and then you don't want to drop a ball with your kids or with your husband or with, it creates this the situation that your physical body was never designed to handle,
You're so right.
especially for long periods of time. And so
Mhm.
I think also it's being gentle with yourself and knowing that if you're struggling with that and you are actively acting with intention to heal, just
Mhm.
give yourself some time, because those reactions and those nervous system responses, they will shift. It will, but it does not happen overnight, which is why I love that you're creating a bit of a protocol, because I do think when you can have a system or you can have some tools to fall back on, that when you are feeling dysregulated, number one, it's just being able to know what
Right.
that even feels like.
100%. So, on that topic, the term I use is called loving awareness. And loving awareness is essentially the axis in which all the other dimensions sit on. We have to
Mhm.
have loving awareness. It is the most important thing. And our awareness is the most valuable thing we possess. That's why companies
Yeah.
spend billions of dollars trying to get our attention. That's why, as soon as you get on your phone, there's ads. Our awareness is so powerful. I wish people understood how powerful it was. And when you can turn that awareness in from a place of love, again, love, right? Not judgment, not critique, but love, that is one of the most powerful things you can do. And it's a great place to start.
Mhm.
100%. You're so right.
So with your 4 dimensions of wellness, I'm imagining it's not like you can pick and choose and be like, "Well, I'm just gonna hone in on one," because that's really what's gotten us into the problem that we've been in, right? Is an imbalance in our approach or a complete avoidance of looking at one whole area.
Right.
So from your vision, because I know you have a vision for what the future
Mhm.
of healthcare
Mhm.
will be. Like, cast the vision for us. What does that look like?
So I am building something. It's not done yet, but it will be done probably towards the end of the year. I want to create actually a container where you can experience what is outlined in the 4 dimensions of wellness. And what that looks like is essentially when you go into, a doctor's office or you go in for treatment, they're not just there to give you a treatment, deliver stem cells or do an injection. We're actually looking at your emotional patterns, your thought patterns, your emotional behaviors, deep rooted trauma. There may be some hypnotherapy involved, meditation, priming, breath work. So we're going to the root of the root of the root instead of just,
Mhm.
again, just another level of addressing the symptom. So, in an ideal world, and what I would love to build and I am creating is a place where you can address your physical, your mental, your emotional, and your spiritual. And we'll do it in such a way that it makes sense and a
Mhm.
process where one that affects the other, affects the other, affects the other. So, if you come in, let's just say you're going to come in for stem cell treatment and you're going to get an IV of stem cells. Before you do your IV of stem cells, we're going to spend an entire day of pre integration and we're going to be working through some emotional traumas and emotional
Yeah.
triggers so you can release that emotion that's stored in your body before we give you the most advanced regenerative medicine treatment in the world, because we want that treatment to have a better outcome, which it will when you address the emotional part first, right? So that's
Yeah.
just kind of an example.
So I've always thought, and even because I had stem cell therapy, and I remember we were talking about this, I believe, when I was in Costa Rica, and I always thought, like, why don't, but like before patients are going into an open heart surgery or any kind of
Mhm.
procedure, is there not a standard protocol that people have to go through where they're able to understand, okay, what are my beliefs about the efficacy of this?
Yes. And what are my beliefs about healing, right? Do I believe I can even heal?
Do I believe I can heal, or do
Yes.
I believe I'm just doing this as like a Hail Mary and it's probably not going to work? Okay, that opens up a whole other can of worms, like diagnosis.
Mhm.
What do you think that, when a doctor comes in and is like, well, likely you've got about 6 to 8 months to live.
I think it's horrible. I think it's horrible. I think you're implanting seeds of doubt, negativity, death, whatever the case is in somebody because our thoughts are so powerful. And what if we
Yes.
change that? What if instead of saying, "Hey, this is your diagnosis," to your point, let's work through your limiting beliefs. Let's figure out what your core limiting beliefs are. Let's work through those. And you go home every single day and you spend 10 minutes envisioning yourself healed, envisioning yourself living your best life. I think we would see totally different outcomes in our health and wellness system.
I
100%.
mean, and just even or even having just instead of a patient honing in on these are the realistic statistics and these are whatever, them being able to see all the positives of
Right.
like people like expanders, of people who have had incredible results. Like that is belief building,
Mhm.
positive belief building instead of negative belief building. And I
Mhm.
think as doctors, you really are belief architects and you
Mhm.
have that responsibility. I always say that same thing with our kids. We always are watching ourselves when we're in conversation with our children because it's so easy for us to project our own beliefs onto them.
Yes.
And then I'll realize after the fact that I did it, and I'll literally go back to them and say, "I just want to apologize. I realize that that's my belief, but that does not have to be yours. In fact, I encourage you, dismiss it. Totally dismiss it," you know? So, I love that. And I love that you're creating a space for people to come. So in terms of experiential healing, so is this something that people would come for like a week? Is it something that they would be a part of then in person, like outpatient, inpatient kind of situation? Or what are your thoughts?
No, so you won't stay on site. The doors essentially would open at 7 a.m. and you would stay till 9 p.m. You could come in and do morning meditations. You could come in and do sound baths. You could do frequency healings. We're going to have various rooms set up for people to experience the different modalities.
I love it.
But it depends. Some people may come for 2 to 3 days. Some people may come for 5 because we're also going to offer psychedelics. So this will be one of the only places that I'm aware of where you can actually do stem cells and psychedelics under the same
Wow.
roof. So those program protocols would be like 5 days, obviously. We wanna do psychedelics on the
Yeah.
front end and then integration and then stem cells on the back end. But yeah, you find an Airbnb or a hotel nearby and you'd come in for your treatments. But again, it's not going to be in a clinic. So that's what's really
Mhm.
beautiful about this. Right now, again, you can go get stem cell treatments and regenerative medicine, but you're just going to a clinic and then as you know, off you go, right?
Yeah.
This is a full immersive community connection. We'll have a private chef. You can do as little or as much as you want, but we want to make sure that all options are available and we're going to build
Yeah.
this schedule in a way that again is touching on every single dimension and also creates community. Because what I witnessed when I was at the clinic in Costa Rica was that when I would go down and we would have a group of patients and we would go to dinners, those people had better outcomes than the people who didn't. Something about that
A
community and
connection. Yeah.
the connection, yes. Again, the human piece of it all is missing. And I want to bring that
Mhm.
back into medicine and into health and wellness.
Well, I am so excited for everything that you're creating, and I'm grateful. I'm grateful that you followed your heart. I'm grateful that you didn't allow fear and limitation to stop you or just life and challenges because that also, right? You can be like, okay, no, I got to stay where I am because life is too hard right now and I couldn't
Mhm.
possibly. And so I'm really grateful for your own demonstration. So thank you for that. And so if people want to find you, which I know they will, and we are going to link your workbook. So the 4 Dimensions of Wellness is coming out April 17th. It'll be available on Amazon and Kindle, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay. And so we will link that in the show notes because this is going to come out before then. But how else can people find you, work with you, keep updated with when your center's going to be opening, all of the things?
So I have an Instagram. It's Dana Herrera Life is my Instagram. And then the website for the book, and it will also be the landing page for the is actually the name of the company, True Healing Experience, is just THECO.life.
That is so cool. I love that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again, sister, for coming.
Yeah. Oh, and I was gonna say there's an assessment on there too. So that's what's really neat. So you should go on and do it. I would love your feedback. So it'll actually give you do the assessment, it'll kind of give you where you're at. And then again, after you come down, we'll do the assessment 3 months later and 6 months later. So we'll really be able to show how you're showing up and what's changing in your whole system.
I love that. I will definitely go on and do that. All right. Thank you again for joining us. And for all of you tuning in, I appreciate you. I see you. I love you. And I will check you on next week's episode.
Thank you for having me. And I love you all too.
Thanks, Dana.
Thank you for being here, beautiful soul. If this episode spoke to you, I'd love for you to pass it along to another woman who might need these words today. And if you feel called, it would mean so much if you would take a moment to rate and review this podcast. It's one of the best ways to support this work and help these messages reach more women who are ready to remember who they are. And if you'd like to stay connected or share what's landing for you, come find me over on Instagram. I'd love to meet you there. Until next time, keep trusting your rhythm, keep honoring your voice, and keep becoming the woman you were always meant to be.